Hi again. I'm Hans, and I'm going to talk about living in the present. I don't know about you, but for years when I heard people say things like live in the moment, stay grounded, or just focus on the present, I had no clue what they were talking about. I remember someone suggested a book to me called The Power of Now, a guide to spiritual enlightenment. And to be honest, I thought it sounded a bit weird. When I came into recovery, I would hear or see the phrase one day at a time. I wasn't sure what it meant. I thought it was a cliche or some kind of slogan. Then I met someone who had one day at a time tattooed on their arm, and I thought, wow, they must really think this is important. But I didn't understand the principle behind it or how people in recovery actually applied it in their lives. But as I learned more about myself, I came to realize that I didn't know how to live one day at a time. You see, so much of my thinking was focused on all those years in the past and what might be ahead in the future. I couldn't really give myself to the 24 hours that really mattered. My thoughts and feelings were busy in the past, replaying mistakes, failures, bad decisions, debts, what people thought of me, or people I was angry with. I ruminated on that crap. I recently found out that the word ruminate has to do with cows and how they regurgitate and re-chew their food. I was ruminating, replaying things that I could do nothing about. In regards to the future, my mind tended to do three things. One, I would get caught up in grandiose thinking and dreaming about some unrealistic goal or great plan. Secondly, I would be overwhelmed with a sense of doom and premeditated failure. And my third tendency was to feel trapped in indecision. I would get stuck because I couldn't make rational, logical decisions like an adult. What a waste of time and energy. Instead of focusing on a few good things that were happening right now, I was digging through the past or fantasizing about and fearing the future. So over time, I learned the value of taking life one day at a time and living in the present. I had such a hard time living in the present that I had to make it simple for myself. I began to do something I call living in the present for dummies. In other words, living in the present for Hans. What I would do is take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, and make two columns. On the left side, I would write to do, and the other column was do not do. So in the to do column, I would write out the basic things that I needed to do that day. These things were within my control. So things like abstain from alcohol and drugs today, reading and meditation, clean the kitchen, make a doctor's appointment, fill out that form for my employer, change the oil in the van, call Dave, have lunch, go for my pee test, have a nap, be kind, patient, and humble with my family, drive my boys to soccer, and go to my recovery support meeting. And that was my day. Those things were within my control. In the right column, I would put things that I didn't have to do today. In that list were two kinds of things I didn't have to do. First, there were things that are never mine to control that I needed to let go of completely. And then secondly, there were things that I was thinking or worrying about, but I would take care of them in the future, not today. So the do not do list had things like pay off debts, decide when I was going to be ready to return to work, expect my partner to trust me, expect my friends to trust and respect me, change what people think of me, repay all the people I had hurt or disappointed, not drink or use drugs ever again for the rest of my life, get my career and finances back on track, and plan for my retirement. Some of those things I was not responsible for at all, and some of them were just not mine to do today. For those things in the right column, some people talk about releasing them or surrendering them. It can be good to say something out loud like, I am letting go of all these things for today. Those who pray or have a spiritual element to their recovery might say a prayer. Someone has said, we do the little things, God does the big things, know the difference. Whether you choose to have a spiritual element or not in your recovery is obviously a personal choice. People have found successful recovery with either approach. So I mentioned spirituality and prayer, and I hope you feel the freedom to have a secular, non-spiritual approach or a faith-based one, whatever you're comfortable with. To help them live one day at a time, some people in recovery use the Serenity Prayer, which basically divides things into the same two columns of things we're responsible for and things we aren't. It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That prayer is basically stating our intention to know which things are ours to change and which things are outside of our control. Again, if you aren't comfortable with the God word or prayer, no problem. This isn't Sunday school. I'm just throwing out some ideas. Another more humanist approach is to simply state an affirmation or intention. So some people say confidently to themselves something like, today I'm going to find serenity by accepting what I cannot change. I will have courage to change the things I can, and I will have wisdom to know the difference. Those are some ideas about taking a day at a time. We all hope for a great future, but of course the future comes one day at a time. But sometimes even a day seems like too much to bite off and chew. I like what the author Glennon Doyle says. I can't take it a day at a time. That's way too much. I have to take it a thing at a time. If it's easier for you, you might want to take that approach of a thing at a time. You might plan out your day so you can tackle activities or tasks one by one. If a whole day seems overwhelming, splitting it into separate pieces can make it easier. And as we accomplish things, we can be kind to ourselves and patient and recognize our achievements. Another way of taking a day at a time or a thing at a time is to break your day into a series of decisions or choices. I often hear people in recovery talk about making the next right choice. If we keep making the right choices, we will probably improve our lives and get past the challenges we're facing. Okay, so we've talked about a day at a time, a thing at a time, and a decision at a time. The last thing I want to talk about is taking life a moment at a time. And this is where we really get down to living in the now or in the present. In her videos, Andrea gave some excellent guidance on meditation and mindfulness. Those are two practices that I'm learning more about, and they help me to live in the present. I hope you will explore those recovery tools. Something else I'm learning about is a Japanese practice called forest bathing, which is simply a walk in the forest. This practice is catching on around the world as a therapeutic tool, and research shows it reduces many ailments like headaches, high blood pressure, heart problems, as well as mental health issues related to addiction. We have a daily exercise time built into the HBR program, so you can make it a walk in the forest or park, and the benefits increase. You'll be forest bathing. By the way, don't make the mistake I made. Yes, the Japanese call it forest bathing, but we keep our clothes on. Other simple things like petting your dog or cat, gardening, listening to music, yoga, they all help us to become grounded and live in the moment. And research shows that the good chemicals in our bodies increase when we do those activities, and the bad chemicals decrease. Recently, someone taught me a tool or a hack to bring me back to the present by relying on my five senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. The first step encourages those suffering in a moment of anxiety or craving to look around at their surroundings and identify 5 things that they can see at that moment. Next, identify 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, which can be anything from your feet and your shoes to a ring on your finger. Then 2 things you can smell. And finally, 1 thing you can taste, which can even be your tongue as long as you can taste it. These steps can be done quickly, and the effectiveness of the tool has been widely backed. Ellen Hendrickson, a clinical psychologist and the author of the book How to Be Yourself, states, "Bringing our attention to our senses grounds us in the present, and counting the items interrupts the spinning of our thoughts." According to Harvard, this hack, which relies on sensory awareness, can help treat addiction, depression, anxiety. It lowers blood pressure and relieves stress. And finally, here's a suggestion about living the present that a friend in recovery sent to me. Weird shit is going to happen, and worrying about it isn't going to change that. Try not to let that freak you out. Cling to the things that will keep you present in this moment. Turn the music up. Walk barefoot on the sand. Look up at the stars. Dance in the kitchen. You have right now, and that's all you need. So I've covered a few concepts in the video. Maybe you were curious about trying some, and if you have questions, please discuss them with your recovery coach. We're just presenting them as options or ideas for you to consider, because we have found them to be helpful for ourselves and others as we live our recovery a day at a time. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate all the work you're doing and your active participation.